Hi. So I do feel genuinely a little bit guilty. Little tad, little bit, just a little bit. Fairy dust guilty over the fact that this series is not really going to have a lot of female artists present. And the reason for that is that a lot of the art books that I have are either from secondhand or I've inherited from my grandfather. And unsurprisingly, historically, a lot of these books weren't printed about female artists. Art history tends to be quite focused on male artists until more recently. I mean, there are some great books, and I have some books I'm gonna show you eventually, but it's a small percentage of the total collection that I have. But I thought last time we talked about Henry Rousseau, we were in sort of France in the late 1800s, impressionists. Surely I have some book of collection of impressionists talking about. I mean, I might find something about like Mary Cassatt or Bertie Morisot, French name. The great artists, important artists, they are interesting too because they are, as female impressionists, they are able to capture scenes that the male impressionists wouldn't be able to capture. But can I find like a compendium or something like a collection talking about the impressionists on the whole that might include these female artists? And the one thing I don't have the whole art collection in my apartment right now. It's art book collection. I mean, it's a bit scattered. I have places in the storage. I'm sort of trying to sort things out. But the one book I managed to find that sort of covers the whole of Impressionism is this book, The Impressionists. It's a slim book. It's not a book actually I'm going to talk about today, but I just wanted to show you. I look up. Okay, so what are the artists discussed in this book? Would this book happen to discuss any of the female impressionists? No, it talks about Manet, it talks about Monet, it talks about Alfred Sisley, which I think is a bit of an unusual choice there. He's not the biggest name. And then it talks about Pissarro, who is important, early impressionist. Kind of is the reason really why impressionism came about, I'd say. Hey, he deserves more attention. I think Pissarro is great. Cézanne, Paul Cézanne, obviously a great artist. Edgar Degas, all those French names, and Renoir. Obviously not a female name there because this is an older book and females don't exist. Only as well, actually they do exist, and actually Bertie Morisot exists in Morisot. I don't think Morisot is the right pronunciation. Anyway, she exists in this book as well, only in the shape of a painting by Degas. Manet. By Manet. Oh, I lost all my credibility there. Mary Cassatt had a relationship with Degas. Manet had a relationship with Morisot. Anyway, and also here's a naked woman as well. This is, for most of art history, this is the role of the woman, to be naked. Oftentimes displayed with a mirror, holding a mirror in the hand, and then you can say, well, actually, I'm not just painting this picture because it's a naked woman, and I sort of want to do. This is not a lustful image of a naked woman. This is a moral tale about a vain woman who is obsessed with her own appearance. So it's not my moral failing that I want to draw naked women all the time. It's the moral failing of these vain women. I'm trying to tell you a warning. I'm trying to warn you about the vainness of women. Male artists have been creeps. Anyway, that's not the actual book I want to discuss this week. I want to talk about, because we talked about Henry Rousseau last week, and I sort of mentioned how he is not necessarily the best at. I keep waving my hands around, so when I ever hold something in my hand, I accidentally show it off, and I want to save the introduction. So anyway, let's start that again. Let's imagine I didn't accidentally show you the book. So last week I talked about Henry Rousseau, and I talked about how he's not necessarily the best at depicting flowers and trees and the leaves and all that. Proportions gets wrong and everything looks a little bit flat. This week we are talking about a book that is it's not about one artist really. It's more this time is really going to be more of a book recommendation. This is a great little book that you should look into getting if you can find it. Order it. And it's florilegium. I feel so fucking florilegium. Okay. Florilegium. Florilegium. The Book of Plants by Basilius Bessler. This is another. I can show you here cover. This is another Taschen. We now have the glorious return of Taschen. This is Prince Bishop Johann Conrad von Gemmingen, founded the famous garden at Eichstätt in the early 17th century. Its magnificent diversity was documented in no fewer than 367 copperplate engravings, published in 1613 by the Nuremberg apothecary Basilius Bessler under the title Hortus Eistetensis. I fucking hate Latin. But anyway, this book is filled with glorious fucking illustrations. I can't show you everything that's going on here. I'm just going to show you some. There's a lot of history as well, but I mostly care. A lot of these books have a lot of written text as well. I mostly just care about the pictures. But there are some great illustrations of flowers. This is the flower this is on the cover. This is, as you can see, very detailed. I think I'm going to have to go in close with the camera because I'm not sure I'm going to find all of these online easily. These are not the sort of things you have to get the book to see. Most of the time, this is obviously a sunflower. If you didn't notice, if you can't tell your flowers, this is a very obscure flower that you may not have seen before. But it's amazingly detailed, and the same goes with all of these. You obviously was a necessity for this kind of. I can show you this one. This is very nice looking. Obviously, there was a necessity for creating images that were these detailed because they didn't have photography. Nowadays, if you have, I imagine most zoologists, biologists, horticulturalists, whatever, they would spend most of the time looking at actual photographs of things. You didn't have access to photography back then. If you wanted to document the looks of a flower or the looks of an animal, you would have to draw it. So a lot of times, horticulturalists and similar zoologists, natural philosophers, they had to be good at drawing. And there's a sort of interesting effect that happens with these drawings. I'll show you here. There's a nice sort of it's a nice composition here. The way that it almost looks like it's planned. It's a gilliflower, a double pink gilliflower, and has tarragon and other herbs. A little bit less showy, but it's very. Look at all these details. It's quite incredible in that regard. But there is a sort of there's an effect that comes up with this when this happens. This is jasmine. This is also it's a nice composition because it sort of looks like it explodes out in this kind of almost like a firework, like a green firework. But there is an effect that happens. This is pomegranate with fruits. This could well be like you would easily have these up on a wall. They are so such wonderful drawings, but there is a effect that happens because they're so detailed, because they're so clear. There is almost a kind of aura aura around them. That's the best sort of pseudoscientific term that I would use. No, but it's an interesting idea. In painting, I remember having a couple of years ago, I wanted to do drawings, or ink drawings, with featuring jellyfish. And what I found was that the more detail, the more focus I put into the jellyfish, the less like jellyfish they felt like. Because jellyfish are very soft creatures. You know, they are jelly. They're made of jelly, not literally, but they're floating around in sort of waves in the underwater. The pictures looked at their best when I put the least amount of effort into the jellyfish, because that's when they kind of captured the sense of a jellyfish. These pictures, obviously, these are flowers. Many different drawings of flowers in this whole book. These obviously have a lot of attention put into them, and I would say generally when it comes to painting, I'd recommend most painter, if you're gonna paint flowers or anything sort of green like that, try to keep down the details. Like, follow my advice with the jellyfish. You don't want to overly focus on all the little small wrinkles, the little bits in here and there, because the more details you add in, the heavier the thing is gonna seem. The more details generally makes things in paintings look heavier. So this is kind of the opposite of what I would recommend with painting, but these are not paintings. They're not meant for that purpose. These are meant to be scientifically studied. Look at just these leaves here. I'm not sure how well it's going to come across on camera, but the shading is also incredible. You really get the sense of all these. Yes, you can. If you ever had one of these big leaves, hold it in your hand, you can sense the texture, and you can sort of see how well it's been studied. Here's a nice bit of study. These are alkanets, green alkanets. But look at the leaves there. Very well shaded, very well. I mean, this is very well observed. But in a painting, these would completely. I mean, this would not work in a painting, a traditional painting. This is African sage and Jupiter's distaff. Both of these I can show you. And the sort of slight root system as well. That's some of my favorites when you see they've added some of the root system. It's generally sort of a bit of an obsession of mine with plants and trees, so that we only see half of the creature, half of the organism. The other half is underground, which I always find fascinating with mushrooms. So, for example, like there's a whole world underground that we are not privy to. But yeah, exact opposite of what you would do in painting, which means that. But the whole thing is that this gets sort of a bit of an aura because of it, because it is so overly detailed. You can't help but just look at these and feel slightly overwhelmed. I'm going to show you, this is hollyhock. Hollyhock, that's a fun word. Good name for a drag queen, hollyhock. But because they have such detail, you almost get like overwhelmed by it in a good way. But that's also, in a way, that's not what you actually want in a painting. You don't want necessarily. You might want, a feeling of awe when it comes to painting. But typically, if you want something in your home, you want it to be. You don't want it to give you a headache looking at it for too long. I actually would get a headache looking at these for too long, because there's so much information that you have to go through with your mind and your head, and even small details. I love here. There's a detail here of the leaf having been sort of eaten up by some sort of creature, some insect, maybe a dog, and. Scientific images, scientific drawings like this, like I would say early scientific, always have that, it always makes you think of ways that drawing used to be a general skill that you would have to have if you were to be a learned man. It wasn't just about being a craftsman, it was about being a well-rounded Renaissance man. Let me see if I can find something else to look at. These are nice, these are irises. You get this onion here, bulb, and you get this sort of lightness. These are very difficult actually to draw. If you want to try and get the feeling of lightness, it's very difficult to get that. You know, swoop. It's the feeling of all of these little tiny strands. It's like hair almost. It's difficult to get it right. You can see this actually comparing it to hair. A lot of painting typically doesn't. There's a good good comparison would be like with animal drawings historically. You can look at some of the earlier drawings. I can show you pictures. If you try to focus too much on adding all of the little hairs of the animal, it's gonna start looking lifeless. It's gonna look like it's a stuffed animal that's just on there. It's not really a living creature, not a living organism. The best animal drawings are the ones that kind of captures the slight fleetingness of the animal, because no animal is ever going to stand still. So if you see an animal in a painting that's perfectly still and like it captures all of the details, it's not going to look real. The real animal is going to be shifting around. It's going to be looking slightly blurry. And I think that's one of the difference between what this is, even though this is all wonderful, and painting, is that in painting you don't want to capture all the details in the real life world. You want to capture something that is more fleeting. And I know this is probably, I'm not sure what the point I'm making, because I brought it up, compared it to Henry Rousseau's painting, why his plans were bad, but let me show you real good plans, and then I say, well, this isn't actually what you should do in painting. So I'm getting that this might be a muddled message. But so what? This is art. This is not a science. Anyway, find this book if you can. It's wonderful. And this is gonna be a little bit shorter video. I'm a little bit sweaty because I've been outside carrying groceries and stuff, which is not. I don't feel very sexy right now, but I think enthusiasm is sexy. So let me show you one impressionist painting I really like though. Look at that kid. Goodbye. Boop.